Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Leveraging Up. I'm your host, Mamie Lamley, and I want you to know this: your voice, your story, and your impact makes a difference in the world. And talking about making a difference, I want to welcome Elena Petrescu to the podcast.
Thank you, Mimi. And I'm very excited to be here with you.
Well, I think I'm even more excited today because we get to hear a little bit about who you are, what you stand for. And I want my listeners to understand, what inspired you to start your business and what's the why that drives you?
Yes. What inspired me? I used to be a single mom when my children were 3 and 9. And I knew that the only way I could support, all the expenses that was for me to start a business and a legacy. And that's what I set out to do 24 years ago. I started off as an accountant and then I transitioned 2011, I had an epiphany. One of my clients mentioned to me that, I put a $15,000 refund into his lap and he refused the refund. That's when I realized that he had a limiting belief. And there was no way I could convince him that, this was rightfully his. He kept saying, I don't want charity, I don't want government's money. That's when I started to, check out what's happening, why we do the things we do, and how the mind works. So I started my journey and learning all about hypnotherapy. And as I train in that, hard time expressing how they feel. And when I realized that when shame and pain was involved, they had difficulties telling me how, they can transition and what's holding them back and the emotions that they are experiencing. So then I realized, okay, I need to learn body language so I can see what they're feeling and thinking. So what I do now is I do what I call mind-body connection, combining the hypnotherapy with the body language so that I can help them transition to get out of their way and then show them how they can become, confident, present in their daily life and their business.
Well, that sounds so fascinating, Elena. I mean, you brought two things together, the mind and the body language. Talk to me a little bit more about what that's all about.
They both mirror each other. Both come from the limbic system. That means, let's say, when we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, the body will show it, either mostly on the facial emotions, but also it's also being shown in the body language. So in order for us to connect with people authentically, first we look at our body language, but then we try to decode someone's body language code. I'll explain. One person cannot be happy or sad or angry at the same time. They are either happy or they're either sad. So I look for that body language code. And when I see that the person is experiencing stress, overwhelm, and anxiety, I know that is not the best moment for me to approach them and say, hey, I have this that I want to share with you. First, I change my body language and do my best to get them to shift from that fight flight into a more calm and relaxed state.
Wow, I love that word shift. The ability for you to even see that in a client, that's priceless. You know, Elena, when you take a look at everything that you've done today, what makes you special? What is it that you want our audience to understand about you and what you do?
My main objective is to help people transition, to help people get out of their way, to help them bring awareness to their behavior. Because behavior is very important. Sometimes we do things and we don't realize. And also, my main objective is to get someone to focus inwards rather than outwards. Because everything happens from within. We need to check what's happening inside my body. What is driving me right now? What are the feelings that I'm experiencing? And if they're negative emotions, what can I do to shift them to be more in a state of relax, calm? Because that's where we get in contact with our genie, that's where we become more creative, more authentic. And that's where we can connect with people more, to build better relationships, really. Because we come from that mindset of I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm ready to have that authentic relationship with.
Calmness and authenticity, Elena. You know what's so funny is that's what I'm getting by just listening to your voice. You have really calmed me down so that I can actually just listen. Priceless.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So, as you've progressed through what you do, there had to have been many lessons that you learned. What is one lesson that you can share with our audience that helped you and potentially could help them level up to the next level?
Yes, absolutely. One lesson that I've had to learn is I had to build boundaries. When we build boundaries, we kind of go more inwards, and I tend to, check out what's internally for me. And then when I connect to that person, how I can help them so that they can be a two-way street. I don't always look, okay, it's good for me, that's fine. So, and sometimes you have to build boundaries because not everybody is your friend. Not everybody is there to lift you up. Not everybody is there to be authentic and work with you. So this is where I've had to really say no sometimes. And I realized that it's okay to say no because it's all right not to connect with everybody. Not everybody likes you, but that's okay. I'm okay with the fact that not everybody likes me.
Well, that's pretty powerful. You just gave us permission to say no. Set up those boundaries, yes?
Absolutely. I think that's okay for us to say no sometimes.
That's a big lesson that I actually had to learn, Elena, because I said yes to everything. Talk to me a little bit about when you learned how to say no. What breakthrough did you have when you got to that point?
So when I started to build boundaries and I said no, I was thinking more of my energetic field, who I'm ready to allow into my energetic field. Working with the mind and the body, I realized that we are all about energy and frequency. And I like to connect with like-minded individuals who carry the same energy, the same frequency, who are out there to help others and connect authentically. So I've had to, move away or simply say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not available to do that, or this is not something that is actually within my connection, or I don't resonate with that fully. So, I can't really say yes to that, but I'm willing to help you in any other way I can, or recommend you to someone who may be a good fit for.
You talk about frequency, Elena, and I know the first time I met you, there was something about you and I. Is that what you're talking about when you talk about frequency?
Absolutely, because at the first point of contact, we tend to go with our intuition, and hypnosis and body language, it's all about intuition. Are you comfortable when you meet that person? Sometimes we are, the first 3 seconds we look at someone and we say, I know she's going to be a good friend. But with other people, you say, well, I need to get to know that person a little bit better before I can get closer. But when I first met you, you and I connected instantly. So our frequency was kind of a match. So that was a huge thing for me.
Absolutely. And based on that, I really do feel comfortable not having to deal with anybody who comes into my energy field. I get to say no. And that is so important, listeners. Are you listening and leaning in? It's the ability for you to give yourself permission to say no and be okay with that. What do you say to that, Elena?
I say absolutely. We need to give ourselves permission to say no. We need to give ourselves permission to take action. I think we need to give ourselves permission to do so many things. And, we tend to forget that it's okay to give ourselves permission.
That is so important, Elena. And I love how you talk about energy and frequency and the ability for us to get to choice, big time. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Because we make choices every day, and we have to understand that whatever choice you make is the right choice at that time, and that you cannot go back and say, oh, I wish I did that, or I wish I did that, because you've made that choice, and you have to be okay with that choice and move forward. Sometimes it may not be the right choice, but we learn through the choices that we make. And I think that when things don't work out, we grow through that, and we look at it and say, oh, I've learned what not to do in the future. And I think that's also very important, because we're here to learn and grow.
I love it. It sounds like you give so much of yourself, Elena. And what I'd like you to share is, what's next for you? What's next for you in the future and on that horizon?
Right now in the future, I'm really excited about launching my coaching program, where I combine the three tools that I've learned. It's taken me a lifetime to master. And, I like to combine all the three of them so I can help the people. One of them is awaken, because we need to be awake sometimes, and we need to say, okay, I see things now a little bit differently. And awaken is very important. And then the other one is realize that it's okay to move forward and to give ourselves permission. And then the last one is transform. I'll show them how they'll be able to transform using hypnotherapy, body language, and I'm also a numerology, so I will look at their blueprint to find out what is it that drives them. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Why are they here? To resolve karma, to help others, but what's the best way that they can help themselves before they can help others?
Oh, I love your technique about going to where that person is, awakening first, and then moving forward with a blueprint that is theirs for the making. Yes?
Absolutely, yes. They come here with that blueprint. It's within their DNA. They just don't realize it.
Elena, our time is short today, but it's not the end, because we're going to continue this conversation on a longer podcast in the future. But before we go, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, there's two ways. They can go to my website, which is www.elenapetrescu.com, or they can simply send me an email at elenapetrescu.com, and I'll be happy to connect.
Lean in, everybody. Elena at ElenaPetrescu.com. So for those of you who want to start to take a look at what are those frequencies, how do we actually reconnect? How do we listen? And how do we learn to say no when we really wanted to say no? Elena, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we have to go?
Well, the only thing I can really say is, I welcome, anybody that wish to connect with me. And I want to say thank you for having me here on your podcast. I really appreciate connecting with you and your audience.
A connection is what this is all about, Elena. And I want to remind our listeners, your voice, your story is your impact. And when you're ready to match those frequencies and learn to say no, Elena is who you want to contact. We're going to say goodbye for now. And thank you so much, Elena, for being on our podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to have been here.